Hi gang, Rob here. It is the morning of 2 September 2015 and I have underneath this beautiful blue cloth a pretty special knife, and actually I kind of messed up. If you remember my knife sale for Bill Griffin's brother Bryant's estate, there were some knives that didn't sell. One of them I restored for me to keep, the Old Timer Stockman. One I restored to give to Bill, the Case Large Sodbuster in Black Delrin. And there's one that I was actually very surprised it didn't sell. And I set it aside and probably piled some stuff on top of it. And once I got all the sold knives shipped out and the unsold knives back to Bill and gave him his Sodbuster, I was cleaning up the shop the other day and I found a no sale that I sort of toyed with the idea of restoring and didn't, and then I just stuck it somewhere and forgot about it. Well, I had a lot to think about over this weekend, and a funny thing happens when I'm thinking, especially if it's thinking about stressful things. I tend to grab basket case knives and abrasive products and tools, and I kind of go to work, and if the Lord smiles on me that day, by the time the work is done, the thinking is over and a resolution happens that puts me at peace and glorifies Him. Well, some of that happened over this weekend, and before I show you what's under the blue cloth, I'm going to show you some footage from the sale video that shows you what this knife was like before I got to work. So take a look. We have a Schrade Walden 136 Hawkbill in beautifully patinaed carbon steel. Been sharpened, but not too darn badly. Just a little bit of a wrong curve there at the tip. Walnut handle, little chunk out of the walnut right there. Another one right there. Carbon steel back spring. I think steel bolsters. The bail. It's really an all steel knife, it appears to be. Yeah, I think so. Oh, well, okay. Actually, as you guys could see, the knife was pretty much all there. There's a lot of really dark brown, almost black patina on the blade that masked a lot of bad grinding and sharpening over the years. The blade was pretty salvageable. I had to do kind of a major regrind on it though, and it's still not perfect. But my main concern was in the handle, and I think the condition of the handle made it worth restoring, because there were some chunks missing, and I had to do some pretty interesting reshaping to make it look good. So you ready? I think this is pretty cool. Here it is. Our old Schrade Walden Hawkbill. And I thought this was walnut that was just really impregnated with grease and oil and fluids from Bryant's hands over the years, but I don't think it is. It's either the blackest black walnut I've ever seen, or it could be ebony. You guys take a look at the grain. I don't think the grain's tight enough to be ebony, but it's very dark. And this has no finish on it, except after I finished with 800 grit sandpaper, I just rubbed a little gun oil all over the whole knife. But it really didn't change the color much. This is how it was. So if you notice from looking at the footage of the sale video, the liners, the back spring, and the wood just didn't meet up much anymore. There was some shrinkage, and corners were sticking out, and now we get everything just absolutely dead flush. Look at the butt. If you notice, we lost some of our flare at the end of the handle because there was a big chunk of wood missing right here. So I had to kind of taper everything to make it look right. There's a lot of wood removed off this handle. Tried to stay away from the pins and rivets as much as I could, but you guys take a little look around it. You can see that everything is just nice now. Don't see any of the pivot pin. Now let's take a look at the blade. Oh. And so here's how I did this. The whole blade is reground in the knife, even the tang. And in order to do the tang, I did this all with a 1x30 belt grinder at 120 grit. And I just sort of pivoted the knife around the edge of the belt, knowing that I was probably going to scar up the bolsters a little bit, but I was going to do those later. And I flat ground the whole knife at 120 grit on the grinder, freehanded the swedge, which came out pretty well, I think. Tried to repoint it as best I could, and there's a good point there, but the original knife, the point flattened out and then curved back a little bit. It had been sharpened so much, and I just didn't want to remove any more material than I absolutely had to. So it's still not quite Hawkbill-ish as it should be, but it's pretty good. I ended up very thin back here at the ricasso, and you can see this edge bevel is done at 18 degrees per side, and it sort of has its thick spots and thin spots. The thinnest spot is back here at the ricasso, so it's just an unbelievable slicer back there. So then 220 paper on a piece of leather by hand, and then finished with 400 paper on a piece of leather by hand, and then just ran it over the rough side of my strap just to get rid of any tactile grind lines. And then, did my normal deal on the edge, just like I sharpen all traditionals, 18 degrees per side all the way to the edge, and then just pick up the stones about a half a degree or so to do any burr removal. So let's see what we ended up with on this old hawk, shall we? That knife will still cut, boys. Especially back here. But even out at the tip, ran out of tip. What a cool old knife. I'm never going to carry this and use it, I don't think. It just takes up a whole lot of pocket. It really belongs on a tool belt. And since I don't work in a tool belt, it's probably never going to get used. But it looks really, really nice. I hate to say it, sitting on my mantle. Just like that, where it will probably stay. It sure is a striking silhouette though, isn't it? Oh. And once again, I know that this knife might even be worth more had I not touched it, even with the big chunk out of the handle. But it sure makes me smile looking like this. I don't know about you guys. Just thought you'd like to see it. Who knows? Might even make a nice Christmas gift. That's all for today. Grace to you and peace, my friends, from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember the word. And Bryant's old Hawkbill are sharp.